Hey, this is Matt Wall, and I'm a location and site selection advisor with Sterling Properties Group based in Charlotte. And all right, about halfway through our site selection A to Z video series. This week is brought to you by the letter N, and I have to admit I really had a hard time coming up with a good topic for this letter. My first thought was to talk about negotiation, but a video on this subject would last for hours. So what I'm going to talk to you today is related to that topic, and it's the term negotiable. So we've all heard the overused phrase, everything is negotiable, right? Well, is everything negotiable? The answer is obviously no, or the answer could be it depends. So let's walk through the main bullet points of a typical term sheet or letter of intent and discuss why some items in an offer are negotiable and others are not, or how to know where the negotiation should end on these items. Okay, first, most of the LOIs I work with identify the buyer. This could be a known person or an entity, but often your client is going to create a single purpose entity or LLC to own the property after you go under contract. So you'll often want to negotiate that flexibility in the contract that the buyer can assign the purchase contract to a related entity to be named later. So let's just say that the buyer is negotiable. Okay, next one is the seller. Is that negotiable? I think not. The person or entity that owns the property today needs to be identified in the contract and verified in your due diligence and likely will not change before closing. So seller identity is not negotiable. Property. Typically, you're going to want to identify the property by address and parcel number, or you may refer to its size and basic description. Since you probably don't want the property to change before you buy it, the property is not negotiable, right? Well now, in some instances, the property needs to be developed into a pad-ready condition by the seller, or other work has to be completed before you close. But you must identify those conditions up front, and you don't want those to change. So the property description is not negotiable after the contract is executed. The next item, price. On first thought, this may be considered the most negotiable of all items on your term sheet, but it's important for you to know how much your client can afford and not exceed that amount either in the purchase price or total developed cost. So make sure you have a grasp of the property's development cost before you commit to a price. After it's set, it's difficult to negotiate later. I've seen some contracts specify a price based on acreage that is based on a survey to be done later in due diligence. But you can't agree to a sale without the price specified or the basis of the price specified in the contract. Next item, timing. This may be called an inspection period or examination period, and there may be extensions for permitting or other contingencies that make this period longer. I'd say generally speaking, this is negotiable, but only to the extent you can get all your inspections and investigations completed and evaluated before you have to close. You want enough time to do surveys, environmental, geotechnical, title, and often get at least some permitting feedback before you close. So make sure you negotiate enough time in your contract to get all these items checked out and verified before your money goes hard. Earnest money. This is often negotiable because this money is going to sit in escrow and be refundable to the buyer during its initial inspection period. I've seen earnest money deposits vary widely depending on the circumstances. The important thing to know is your client and how they view these deposits. If they're doing 100 deals a year, they may want the deposit to be ridiculously low. And probably more importantly, you need to negotiate when these deposits will become non-refundable. Closing. This is the last item I'm going to cover here, is when the closing is going to take place. So most of my clients state this as, say, 30 days from the receipt of permits, or 30 days from satisfaction of contingencies, or X number of days from the end of the inspection periods. If you have an all-cash buyer, you might shorten this closing period to a matter of weeks. That quick closing helps you when you're competing with other offers that may have financing contingencies that make it take longer to close. Simply put, closing is negotiable, but make sure you don't overpromise on how quickly this might be, because your seller may make plans to do a tax-deferred exchange and risk losing a trade property if you miss your closing dates. So those are my general thoughts on what items in a term sheet are negotiable and why. And here's your pro tip. When you're working with a new client, spend time talking in detail on these items in your term sheet. You want a clear understanding with your client so you can best negotiate on their behalf. The clearer your understanding, the better armed you are in communicating the reasons your client may be sticky on some terms and negotiable on others. And clear communication builds trust with the sellers and helps you in managing expectations on both sides of a transaction. And this is all critical to a smooth transaction. Okay, that was in for Negotiable. I hope that was interesting and helpful. Tell me what you think in your comments and let me know if you have other ideas on the topic. And I appreciate you watching this. And if I can ever help you with your location or site selection needs, please call me and let's talk. This is Matt Wall with Sterling Properties Group signing off.